All right, so welcome back to this video series on critical digital pedagogy and teaching with digital tools in your classroom. I'm Lee Hall, an associate professor of literacy studies at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And this is the third video in the series. And today we're going to be talking about rethinking practice with a critical digital pedagogical mindset. If you haven't watched the first two videos, I encourage you to do that as these really build on one another. And this video for this chapter, I'm going to actually split it into two parts. And in this chapter, in this video, I'm going to be diving into examples from my own practice and sharing with you how they connect back to a critical digital pedagogical approach. So anyways, all right, here we go. I'm going to show you some examples from my teaching, right, that use digital tools with this critical digital pedagogical approach. Or my attempt to do so, because this work is messy. And often I'm using tools that are new to me, or I'm using them in new ways, and it doesn't always pan out the first go around, but that's okay. We'll talk about that too. What I want to communicate is that I think it's important and fun to just get in the game and start playing. Like, you just have to start. Let the work that you do be good enough. Be reflective of yourself, make improvements, but don't let fear or doubt about what you Don't let fear or doubt that what you do won't be good enough hold you back. Okay, that's important. So I want to start with the syllabus example that I showed you back in the first video, because I think it's very easy to do and it's something you can implement right away. Now, I create my syllabi using wiki spaces. It's free for educators. You can have as many syllabi on there as you want. You can use the wiki for any really any educational purpose. I just use it for syllabi. And you can see here, it allows me to create a menu bar, if you look to the right, with a number of pages on the right-hand side. So I can link to things in and out of the wiki. I can link to readings. I have hot links for each meeting date. When you click on them, you can get an overview of what we'll be doing in class that day. I showed you some of that in the first video. Now, you can set it up so that anyone can edit the wiki. And I've always left my wikis public. You can make them private, and you can require students to become members of the wiki in order to edit it. But I personally haven't found that necessary and more trouble than it's worth. It's just an option to consider. And this accomplishes, having something like this, a number of things for me. First of all, I'm organized. My students are organized. It gives them a structure to keep up with things. It can be easily edited to respond to the needs of the class, and nothing is going to get lost. But now I want to put my rethinking of the syllabus in context with the 6 characteristics I shared with you in video 2. And I'm not going to do this with every example. I'm not going to get this fine-grained with everything, but I want to do it once so you can see my thinking behind it. And you'll see here that my work with the syllabus doesn't address all of these things. And here I've split this into 7 components. And, so if you caught that, you're not imagining things. I just put communication and collaboration in their own rows to make it easier. So, in my experience, my new syllabus format does the following. Community and collaboration is there. We can redesign the syllabus as a class, we can add to it, take things out, we can have a discussion, and I can make the modifications, or sometimes a student does it. It's really whatever is easiest. It therefore reimagines communication. So I've jumped down to the third point here. Because now I've created a living, breathing document that is open to edits and rewrites. Communicating about the syllabus and what and how we learn starts to become the norm for us. For example, let me flip back here for a moment. On this previous slide, you will see a column called Teach Me How. That wasn't there on the first day. It was added so that the teachers in my class could sign up and share their work with their peers. I had teachers that were experts or becoming very good at particular pedagogical practices, and they would demonstrate those to their peers, show them how to do it, and we would discuss it. That arose from the class, and we changed the syllabus to allow for this opportunity to exist. So, coming back here to these elements, as a result, the syllabus is not defined by a single voice, all right? It could be, right? I had to write the darn thing initially, and if I were to use this as simply an electronic version of my old paper syllabus, then I would not be implementing a critical digital pedagogical approach. So this gets back to the idea that using a digital tool is not automatically critical digital pedagogy. It's all in how you use it. I had to open this syllabus up to other voices, and I had to teach my students how to engage with the syllabus in a new way. This is definitely a change in the status quo. It's a change in a couple of ways. First, the syllabus is not that standard box form that I showed you in the very beginning that students are used to receiving. Second, it's electronic, which could be unusual for them. But because I expect them to refine the syllabus and even make edits to it, I have definitely shifted the status quo with the standard syllabus practice in ways that I think are beneficial. Now, I think my redesign of the syllabus falls short in 3 areas. All the places where you see the term minimally met are places where I think it's not hitting the bar. So how is that? It does not increase diversity overall in terms of voices being heard, at least for me. It does. I'm sorry. It does increase diversity overall in terms of voices being heard, right? Because students are having more say. But it does not have an international presence. And at the moment, I'm not trying to have people beyond my class have a voice in the syllabus and content, though it could be interesting to think about how I might do that. It also doesn't have a use beyond the traditional university outside of the fact that I can share it with you. But again, I think that's okay for the moment. Collaboration happens, but I do the bulk of the shaping of the syllabus. I still come in with assignments and readings, the usual basic stuff. How the syllabus is written from scratch is still pretty much the status quo, the way that you would expect it to be done. I don't know what to think about that, but I recognize it. And so that's an example of how I would take a digital tool and think it through alongside these characteristics. These characteristics I've identified for engaging in a critical digital pedagogical approach. And I'd like to point out that I think I've done a good job here. And I think it might not be possible or even necessary for me to always be doing all of these characteristics with a given digital tool. All right, now, one of the things I'm working on at the moment is how to use Twitter effectively in my instruction in a way that follows a critical digital pedagogical approach. And I'm going to share 2 examples with you. And then that will be the point at which we stop the video, and we'll pick up with more examples in a subsequent video. The first one focuses on tweeting as part of class. Now, what I have up here is a portion of my directions for what it means to tweet in class. These directions go with an undergraduate course that I'm teaching for our minor in education called The Politics of Reading. And my goal here was for students to use Twitter to engage in broader conversations about course issues, right? So Twitter has the potential to do that. It has the potential to engage my students with diverse and international voices and completely shifts how we think about communicating in class. Because through Twitter, students can theoretically have discussions with myself, their classmates, and anyone in the world who uses Twitter about relevant issues. Additionally, they're sharing their thoughts, questions, resources, and so on with an outside audience. We have a course hashtag. You can look it up. It's hashtag EDUC511. It's also, you can see it listed here in the directions. You can see what they've done. Now, a few things I want to stress about how I use Twitter. Right now, participation is optional. I actually give students a menu of opportunities they can participate in, and Twitter is one of them. So if they don't like it, or if they don't want to be on social media, they don't have to use it. They could just read the hashtag if they want it. And I'm not overly prescriptive. So in class, I tell them to strive to find the balance of the appropriate tweets they should be writing. I tell them you don't want to tweet so much, you really aren't participating, and you don't want to do it too little. I don't count tweets. I don't police grammar and spelling and so on. There are Twitter rubrics. You can Google Twitter rubric right now and find them. And as a matter of fact, let me show you one. I've just found this by Googling Twitter rubric. So it comes right up. I don't use a rubric, right? Like I said, for Twitter. I just glance at it and see if I think it looks good. And I've had 0 problems with this in class. So the amount of time a person will spend tweeting will vary. Let me show you. This is an example of a page that was under construction at the time. You can see a section heading here, how might technology inform instruction? And then you can see where I have slotted for up to 3 people to sign up. And this section could be longer or shorter than a different section of class. I'm not going to start down the path of counting tweets. And what would I say? How many tweets should one have in 15, 20, or 30 minutes, right? When we do that, we're missing the point of Twitter. And we're getting our students focused on the act of counting and not the act of tweeting. So I say use your best judgment in terms of volume. That's what I tell the students, and that's working out fine. The other thing about a rubric is that Twitter goes by fast. It's easy to tweet a lot in a short amount of time. If I had to go through and micromanage tweets, I would quit. Okay, I wouldn't do this because I wouldn't do that sort of micromanaging thing because I'd be miserable, right? And instead of spending my time retweeting what my students say, having discussions with them outside on class on Twitter and connecting with others on Twitter, right? I wouldn't be doing that. I'd just be counting and checking grammar, and it would be pretty bad. So Twitter has a great potential to support critical digital pedagogy. I think my two favorite things are that it allows me to be in conversation with my students between classes as much or as little as I want. And I don't respond to every single tweet, and I don't have a set of guidelines for how I will respond to my students. I select the like button for ones I really like. I respond to ones where I really have something to say, and I retweet things that my students have shared if I think my followers would find value in it. Which gets me to my favorite second thing about using Twitter, which is it can alter the status quo around how knowledge is developed, communicated, and who has the authority around it. Students' knowledge is not dependent on what I share or don't share, but can now be developed based on a much larger network. They have to decide if and how they will engage in that network, and their decisions can have impact on what they learn. I'm not the only one in a position of authority when it comes to what information is presented. Students decide what they want to share on our hashtag and how they will use it. All right, so that ends the section on Twitter. And in the next video, I'm going to pick up on blogging as critical digital pedagogy. So I hope you will return and join me for that.